Okay, so I just wanted to record a very quick video to help you out with how to complete our first history skills section, which is in Module 1 here. So I apologize, there's going to be things you see here that don't look like the final course. Obviously, I have to record these videos before the whole course is built out, or else there'd be, no videos to put in the course. So what you're going to see here is like the history skills 1, primary and secondary sources. And there's going to be, I believe, 4 of these history skills sections scattered throughout different modules. And their purpose is twofold. First, to help you build the skills necessary to navigate a history course, how to use sources, how to make an argument, and so on. And secondly, all of these 4 elements are going to culminate in your final assignment, which will be to write kind of an essay response on your choice of one of 4 questions. And throughout the history skills sections, you're going to build out pieces that you're going to use. The first one is really just kind of building the very basic understanding. But after that, you'll have one on Module 5, crafting an argument, where you will write your thesis statement for your final assignment and workshop it with people on a discussion forum. Module 6, you'll build a rough outline. And then Module 8, you'll get feedback and learn how to revise it, so that by the time you get to the final exam paper, you should have already a full plan for how to write it that'll let you do it pretty quickly. So it's kind of a scaffolded thing where you build what you need throughout the semester. So how to approach this first one? This first one's on primary and secondary sources. It's basically helping you learn how to distinguish and analyze between those two. And there's 2 things that you're going to use. First is a short reading, just a few pages, how to read a primary and secondary source. It's just a very quick kind of worksheet here, or not a worksheet, but handout that tells you here's how to work with a primary source, and here's how to work with a secondary source. And after you finish that reading, you'll use it to do the assignment, which says use the reading to answer these 3 questions. Is the source below here a primary or a secondary source? How could you tell which type of source it is? And 3, dipping your toe into the analyzing stuff from the handout. What is the purpose the author had in mind when they produced this document? That is, why did they write it? And so what you'll have is this letter here, and then you have a citation at the bottom, which might give you some clues as to what it is, when it was produced, and so on. And then you'll just write out your response, no more than 150 words, in full sentences. You can either number them and do full sentences, or just write them as a paragraph, whichever you prefer. So the one thing I want to mention before you get started on that is, the handout gives you this information, but I wanted to give you a very brief overview of the difference between a primary and a secondary source, because sometimes people have a little trouble grasping that difference, and it's really key to doing work in history. So a primary source is something that was produced at the time it was describing by someone who has like firsthand experience, right? So for example, a primary source about our course might be, if one of you keeps a diary and you're writing about, oh yeah, I found this particular lecture really boring, or this was a more interesting assignment, or I wish, this had been the case, that would be a primary source, right? If a historian in 50 years was looking back to figure out what our course was like, they would read it and you'd have primary evidence. A secondary source is an expert or a scholar writing from a more academic point of view, removed from that time period. So a secondary source about our course might be something written in 2050 about, some historian is writing about what happened in 2020 and 2021 or whatever, why were so many people taking online courses? Like, here's one example, this History 221 course at the University of Louisiana. So that's kind of the difference between a primary and a secondary. To give you another example that'll show up more directly in our course, a primary source would be when I give you things like, you know, in Module 2, you'll read an excerpt from an autobiography of a man named Olaudah Equiano who had firsthand experience with the Atlantic slave trade. That would be a primary source. It was something he experienced in his time. You'll also read an article about how scholars can help, how scholars understand the Atlantic slave trade. That'll be a secondary source. It's someone from another time period using their professional or academic experience to give an opinion. So that's the main distinction, and the handout will really help you build that up as well. So anyway, I just want a very brief video giving you that distinction before you jumped into the assignment. All right, good luck.